we were doing this extra personal training cert, the side cert we were doing that was really awesome. They showed a video of like improper squats and we were going through hip hinging and all that great stuff. And he showed a video of a guy squatting, and it was the grossest, worst squat we've ever seen in our life. Like, he really was tilting to one side and just looked odd. It was really odd how he'd put the one hip back and squat more from that side. And then he asked everyone, like, does this person seem like someone who's an athlete? And we're like, well, not really, right? He's like, yeah, this guy's in the NBA. How/what should I do about uneven body parts? And the specific context of this question was that one arm was bigger than the other. And he was wondering, how can I combat this? How can I actually make a point to balance this out or make sure I'm not making this problem worse? And this is something I see very, very often in people that are newly lifting and people that have been lifting for a long time. It's very common to have one side of our body that we favor. Obviously, we have a dominant arm, and sometimes it can be opposite the dominant arm. Myself, I use my left arm to like pick up most of the 45s. When I was a trainer, I noticed my left side was way stronger, and I attributed that likely to me lifting and changing weights and doing a lot with my left arm to keep my right arm free for if I needed anything like just quickly to do. So I actually found that a little bit interesting. But as you lift, you will find this. And I think the most common one that I hear this in is the chest. For both men and women, people say, hey, I find my left chest is a little bit bigger. And in that case, the answer is a little more obvious. Your heart's there, so it's natural for that to protrude a little bit more forward and for that not to be exactly the same. And that is something that, once again, is quite normal. The arms are quite normal from having that dominant side. It's less common in the legs, but I'm going to kind of go through this and some solutions as to what you can do. So the first thing is you absolutely should do something. Some people would argue do nothing. It's not a big deal. An imbalance isn't huge. And for most people, small imbalances really aren't a big issue if it's very, very small and no one can notice it. Whereas I've seen like a silly reel where this guy only shrugs with one trap, and it actually is hilarious. Like, I truly believe the body wants to be symmetrical, but it's amazing how much he's developed that one trap compared to the untrained trap. So it's kind of a unique science experiment, if you will. But in general, the difference will be very moderate. So even when I go in for a DEXA, I'll usually notice that one side of my body will have like 3% more muscle than the other side. Like, I'm not worrying about that. If it was anything extreme, I would actively make a point to combat that. But some general brushstroke solutions that will just tend to fix this for most people is moving from compounds to unilaterals. So instead of just doing things with both your muscles, and I say compounds because when you think bench, squat, deadlift, or any compound multi-muscle movement, usually you'll optimize that by not doing it unilaterally, which just means you'll just do one motion instead of doing it with each limb individually. So I could do a leg press, or I could do a single leg press. Technically, a single leg press is still a compound, but you kind of think of it as narrowing more in on one leg. But by me really actively working one leg at a time, you will notice that one leg often is stronger than the other. And the problem with this is, if I do that leg press and I do it just naturally, I can overcompensate with my strong side and actually take some of the pressure and power off of my weak side. And I can further exacerbate that indifference and therefore further create more imbalance in muscle. So if you don't do much unilateral training, this is something you want to really be aware of. And I really look at this when my clients come to my program. I get their photos, I get their measurements. Sometimes I catch these imbalances. And when I do, I really focus in on having a lot of unilateral training. And I do find that fixes it quite quick, and you don't need to do anything too drastic. If it's a very significant issue and people are really insistent on fixing it faster, what I recommend is always starting with the weaker side first, because if I can only do 8 reps on that weaker side, but I find on my stronger side on that leg press and I've reached failure, I could do 12. I'll stop myself at 8 and naturally it'll start to level out. And I've done this in the past and it's been really effective. So that is one thing you can be aware of. Always starting with that weak side and then just stopping shy on that strong side. So you're not doing like 8 reps with the weak, 15 reps with the strong side and continuing that issue. So if you're mindful of that, you add more unilateral training. These common fixes will fix most things. And once again, bench press is another good example. You'll see some guys bench and it will be so uneven. Like, the bar will just be absolutely crooked. If this is happening, it could be mobility issues, it could be strength issues, but that stronger side is going to compensate so much more. And that's why that bench is so unequal. And that's going to just lead to so much imbalance, because going back to that example of a compound lift, on that bench press, I'm working my triceps, I'm working my chest, I'm working my shoulders, my biceps or antagonist muscles on the way down. Like I'm working on the negative to actually control that bar. So there's a lot of things that will get affected by me using one side dominantly over the other. So that's where you want to be really careful. If you do start to notice this, just fix it. So to that example of someone who's benching, if this is a problem, grab the dumbbells, do each side individually, and you'll be very quite aware. And with dumbbells, there's less hiding. So that was my third and final tip, is to utilize dumbbells, because if one side's going up and one side's barely moving, you're like, oh shoot, I need to narrow in on this and figure that out. So once again, you can use that same rule I had before. Just stop at failure when that weak arm is finished, and you will start to naturally see this start to improve.
Yeah, even myself, I've had some different imbalances over the years that I've had to take a step back from like those barbell movements and then just do a cycle of 12 weeks, let's say just dumbbells. Like Josh said, like it does seem like the bench press into dumbbell bench press is a common one. Even shoulder press, right? We see a lot of people like you just, the bar is like one side like tipped over. And then if you just switch over to dumbbells, like you'll really see that difference, and it'll allow you to, understand what's going on there. But I see a lot of other things that you may not even realize. Like let's say tricep pushdowns. It's very possible that one side is doing not most, but like a couple extra reps of the work, and you may not even realize it. So like even from doing different tests, like I notice different things when I do single arm tricep pushdowns. I can kind of test it out and see, okay, everything's even, we're good here. So it is a good idea to like test these things out occasionally to make sure everything's all good, right? Because it's so easy to just go about the routine and everything and not realize that there's some different things going on where one side is being used more than the other. Another small thing is trying to do outside, and this is outside of the gym, but being conscious of like how much you do with that one side. So I've accepted that my right side is always going to be more dominant. It's going to be, just stronger, even though I've had a past shoulder injury, like it still is, that shoulder and that arm. But, when you think about it, like every single thing you do, whether it's picking up your kids, I notice even when I pick up my hockey bag, like it always goes on the one side, like when I open a door, when I push a door, like everything like that. So I'm like, okay, trying to switch it up to, use that other side to give that, more strength and just like utilization as well. So that's something that I'm always trying to be aware of. It's not as easy to implement, but yeah, I think there's a lot of things, and I'm specifically trying to think back to legs as well, because these are things I've gone through, even having a past groin injury. Like there's still some times where I'm like, even doing single leg press, I'm like, I need to be mindful of this. Like I can tell that one side is still a little bit off. And some people with barbell squats, like you can see they're tilted over. You can see like this one's not as dramatic and you won't notice as a bench press, but like there's different things where your one side will rise quicker than the other, and it just looks really off. And if you start to do lots of lunge work and Bulgarian split squat work and single leg press work and single leg hamstring curls, you can just really fix this over time. And the last thing that I've been implementing, and I will do sometimes, especially because the hamstring curl, I notice my one side is a bit weaker, is I'll start with my weaker side. Let's say we have 10 reps prescribed. I'll do 8 reps on the weaker side. I'll do my 10 on my stronger side, and then I'll go back and do my last 2 on the weaker side, just so I can still do 10 and 10, even though I couldn't do 10 consecutively on the weaker left side. So these are all great things to consider, a lot of takeaways, and I'm sure a lot of things you can also improve on your journey as well.
Yeah, and I'll never forget when we were doing this extra personal training cert, the side cert we were doing that was really awesome. They showed a video of like improper squats, and we were going through hip hinging and all that great stuff. And he showed a video of a guy squatting, and it was the grossest, worst squat we've ever seen in our life. Like he really was tilting to one side and just looked odd. It was really odd how he'd put the one hip back and squat more from that side. And then he asked everyone, like, does this person seem like someone who's an athlete? And we're like, well, not really, right? He's like, yeah, this guy's in the NBA. And I was like, wow, that's crazy, right? But if you consider, even for them, they're pivoting off one side, their dominant side, they're jumping in a certain pattern and moving in a certain way where history matters so much, and usually there's a reason. And even to Kyle's point, like it's even funny, I have a really chunky baby and he's heavy, and my last son's heavy too. They're both about 30 pounds, and I like to hold them in my left side, so I'm trying to be mindful to hold them in my right, but I could further create more of a gap in that problem. So that's where really good programming is more important than ever before, like because programming can fix most of these things. And I really actually went down this thought today at a little bit of a side tangent, but it's funny how naturally you're born, and as long as you're in good health, you can do most things. You can put your arms overhead. Babies can squat really, really nicely. They can sit. these movement, these strengths, we're able to do a lot of these things. And the reason I mention this, it's funny for me, like I really took how healthy my shoulders were for granted. I think I was bragging about it on the podcast recently. And like even the concept of moving my arm overhead, having full mobility, having no pain, no impingement. And then when you dislocate it, you're like, oh my gosh, it starts to go away. But that's life and things happen, and you have to rework for these things, unfortunately, as life goes on. And if you've created problems from blessings, like you had a kid and you're always carrying them on one side, you might have to start looking at programming to fix that. But the great news is you can actively do it. And even me, like learning more about shoulder mobility, battling impingement, regaining strength after dislocation, it's really cool to see that if you put in the work towards anything, you absolutely will see the result. And if you have an imbalance and visually it annoys you or physically it limits you, you can really actively work to start to improve these things. And even those NBA players, right? They're going to have potential future mobility issues. I know golfers get a lot of hip and knee injuries because they're swinging so intensely on one side over and over. So that's where you want to be really aware. Maybe you're not an elite athlete, but you're someone who likes to golf 3 times a week. You want to start making sure you're balancing yourself in the gym in training. So you can really use training for actual health and for movement in that capacity as well as aesthetic difference. So there's a lot that can go in, and that's why it's more important than ever to have a really, really good training routine. And on that note, there's a quote I wanted to share that I loved, and it's, if you think the price of winning is too high, wait till you get the bill of regret. And this just hit me like a brick. And to this point, like when opportunity comes, it's really important you seize it. And right now, we've mentioned before, this is the last chance to get our early access summer shred challenge pricing. So if you wanted to jump into coaching, maybe you've never made that investment before, now is your best time because you're going to get those early access deals 25% off. And that literally goes away tomorrow. So if you want to take advantage of this, message us today or check out the first link. That's going to explain what my coaching is, how it works, why I've been able to help over 4,500 people one-on-one online. And just know I'm going to make a routine custom for you. I'm going to do custom nutrition, give you the accountability to navigate the highs and the lows. And when you go to hotel for the weekend for a work event, and when it's your birthday and you want to have cake, I'm going to be with you every step of the way to blast through every roadblock, every excuse to make sure you can see results and see long-term sustainable results. So don't pay that price. Don't pay that price of the bill of regret saying, oh, if only I did this. I've had people reach out for coaching. Everything was perfect. I'm like, let's do this. And they're like, I'm just going to wait. And then they come back a year later and they're like, oh, okay, I'm in. I should have done it earlier. Let's see how it goes. And then when they're getting those results, it's like, oh, so many people tell me they kick themselves because they're like, I could have been so much further ahead, so much happier, and saved a lot of money on some of the other nonsense I spent in the meantime. So if you're serious about seeing change, let me do the hard work for you. Click that link, fill out an application, and we'll take it from there. Take advantage of this early access pricing for this challenge. It's going to be a killer challenge. I'm going to support you through that, before it, and after it. So this is a perfect time to make your dreams a reality.